preparation could have been the same, they could be the same, but like if one has the like here, that where's the mental part comes in, like in my opinion, like who is mentally tougher in that fight at that moment, you know.
So in today's episode, we sit down with Ursa Terdin, who is from Slovenia and is a 5-time European champion in Taekwondo, 2-time vice world champion, and in WAKO kickboxing, a 3-time world champion, 3-time European champion, and a 6-time World Cup winner. Ursa is also studying the Masters in Sports Psychology in Germany. So in this chat, we get into some of her experiences and some of the things that she's learned along her journey from a mental perspective. So be sure and give this video a like, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, and I hope you enjoy. So basically, do you want to just kind of give us just a background of your story, maybe like how you got into Taekwondo, and maybe we can start from there?
Okay, so I started Taekwondo when I was 9, and it was not much of a backstory actually. I just get too girly, and it was a random. I just came across the club and liked it, and had the dobok on the next week already. So that's it. Yeah, and I started training by Tomaz Barada.
Yeah, obviously you've been on the national team for a long time and things like that. When did you first begin competing internationally?
My first international competition was Sweden 2010. That was Europeans, and ever since I think I've been on pretty much every competition.
Nice, good.
Yeah.
Is my connection bad, isn't it?
It says it's like, low.
Is it lagging or?
A little bit.
We'll try and persist to see how it goes.
Yeah. Should be okay, hopefully.
Okay.
Technology will never be
to the
perfect.
hotspot, so hopefully. Yeah, that's true.
We try. So yeah, since 2010, so already you have 10 years of international competition.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot.
I feel old when I think of it like that.
Yeah. And obviously, like, having competing at that high level for such a long time, was the mental side of the game something which you practiced or trained, or?
So in Slovenia, I never really worked with a sports psychologist because it's not really a big field. As for the mental part, it's just my own interest. Like over the years, I started seeing, that it's more to it than it sounds. And yeah, I got really interested in that. And when I went for my bachelor's, I studied biopsychology in Slovenia. And then already in my bachelor thesis, I was focusing on mental toughness and like all the sports psychology topics. And I knew I wanted to go dig more into it in my master's. So when I found the program in Germany.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big step. Was there any moment when you kind of realized, oh, okay, I need to focus a little bit more on the training of my mind or the mental training than maybe just the physical and technical training?
I think once I started seeing the results of like when I was fighting or competing with my mind in a certain state and how much better it was compared to when my mind was all over the place and everything, that's when I started looking more into it, but I guess it would be a whole different experience if I was actually working with a sports psychologist at some time.
So everything that you learned, sorry, Adrian, was everything you learned like from like books or self-taught, or did you speak to somebody?
Also books and just on the internet videos, so on.
Is it something that would say when you're traveling and training as part of Team Slovenia, or even training with Master Barada in Maribor, that was part of the conversation, or did it become part of the conversation even when you were a junior?
I think that Tomaz also has he had a big impact on that, because he's just the type of coach, I think, that even though when I was a junior, I maybe didn't pay much attention to some things he would say during the training, and now that I'm older, I notice it, and I actually see that he's actually how can I say that, trying to work on it for it doesn't matter who's on the other side, you have to focus on your game. It doesn't matter if you're sparring against the world champion or so on. And when I was younger, it just feel, yeah, he's just saying that, but now I think he was trying to get that mindset into us when we were, to all his team.
Yeah. Very important where your beliefs are, and how you establish your beliefs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Obviously, in Maribor, you have a big group of people who are quite high level. Was that something that kind of was able to push you along when you were starting off to give you that mental edge? Is that something that you took confidence from, knowing that you came from a school which is considered to be high level around Europe and the world?
Oh, for sure. I think there were when I was a junior, there were a lot of older people that were really successful at that time. And then when I was becoming one of the older ones, the younger ones started to come up from nothing, and they were it was always, I think on every training there was someone who was a challenge to spar with and work with. And I think that all of us have been pushing each other, to never miss a training, give your all, because if you don't give 100%, you will, be left behind and so on,
And you're talking about a very special environment, and are there any things that you can kind of pick out that are different in that environment, or that stand out from that environment?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, of course. So the environment that you're talking about is it's a very special environment. Can you think of any things that are done deliberately to create that environment?
I'm sure that he, if we're talking about Tomaz, that he tries to create the environment where everyone should work at the best of his or her abilities all the time, and then when it's over, you can relax and go home. But he has this kind of energy that you want to, I don't know, just give your all, even if it's not, I don't know, there will always be faster and stronger and better people, but I think he just brings out this out of his students, to always push themselves. And like you said before, he tries to to give beliefs. Is that from younger age? So now that I see our juniors whom I know since they were 10, and they're 16 and 15 now, and they really have this mindset now that it's impressive to see it over the years, how it just becomes a part of them,
And where do you think that comes from?
Sorry?
Go ahead, Richie.
Sorry, Adrian. I was just going to pick up on that and say, where do you think that comes from? That where does that mindset come from, apart from just the trainings? Is there anything that Master Barada gives you, talk and communication, relationship wise, that you think inspires that?
I think for sure the the team spirit that comes naturally out of because there's a small group that trains together, I don't know, twice a day before the big competitions. And I think he always maybe not so obviously, but now maybe I notice it more now, that he tries to really encourage for us being a team, being there for each other, but at the same time to compete against each other all the time. It's not if you do 10, I will do 11 for sure. I think he's really working on that to give us that mentality, to always prove yourself and be better than your partner, but not in a like bad way, but just
not to put
the
them
helping
down.
competition. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that. Yeah.
So from your point of view, where do you think your confidence comes from, or do you have moments when you're not confident?
I think like during the years, it was like when I would be winning titles, I would always, when I found myself like not very confident, I would try to like draw my confidence and like the belief in myself from my previous successes. Like I've done it before, I can do it again, and so on.
Yeah.
But I think when I was younger, that my just knowing that I did everything and that we really worked hard for it, and this whole team energy and the belief of my coach in me. I think that was always if I don't believe myself like 100%, like my coach will always believe in me so much that it will just come upon me, if that makes sense. And
absolutely. Yeah. I think that that combination where you have from the very beginning the beliefs that are being set up in the club, and then you have how hard you've trained and the effort that you've put in, and that you have confidence in your preparation. That sets you up for your first successes, and then after that you have some experience to look back to, and you can say, oh, okay, I know I was able to do this before. I know my training is good. I know my preparation is good. I still believe what I've always believed. So you can get some consistency about being confident from that.
For sure. And when you were younger, or even now, if you know by yourself that you didn't put on so much time and everything, you can convince yourself. But like if you've done it before 100%, now you know that if you didn't do everything, I think it shows also in your performance, because you, on some level, you still doubt it,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important.
Definitely.
I think because when you can look back to your training, your preparation, it's like you're in charge. So you know if you do the things that you can do to the best of your ability, you're in charge of how you can do, and it takes other things out of the equation. Then you don't need to be lucky. The luck is in your hands. The harder you train, the luckier you get.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. Were there any things that you would really kind of build into your routine before you started studying psychology, like things like that you might do in your warm-up or days before the competition, just to prepare you from a mental point of view?
Mm-hmm. I had an audio from a motivational video from YouTube downloaded. Like, I don't know, you've sure seen it. I can send it to you. And I had it on my iPod since, I don't know, 2012. And I know like every word on it. But just like, I think that this one really like helps me block out the like surroundings and everything. And because like I'm really, because I'm a calm person, I have to get myself, pumped up to some level, but not over. But that's with everyone, of course. Like you don't want to be overly activated or something.
Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, I've been listening to like motivational things before my every fight. So that's the routine I had. Yeah.
Really cool. Do you think there comes a little bit of pressure coming from a school that you come from?
Oh,
Did you ever feel that pressure?
Yeah, it does. Like, that people are expecting you to be good, even if it's just your first. I remember like my first or second European Championships, and there were like the older teammates were like everyone knew them, or they were defending titles, and knowing that Tomaz was my coach then, and I still had so much to prove. Like I remember feeling that pressure. Like, yeah.
How were you able to deal with that? Because obviously you were quite successful early on, so obviously you were able to deal with that and cope with it.
I think I can't remember it fully, but I think that I just tried to not think about it too much. Like, for example, my brother, he's 5 years younger, and he started training a few years ago, and people were constantly asking him, like he wasn't even a yellow belt, like, oh, will you also compete like Ursa, will you go blah blah blah. And then just this pressure, and it wasn't really a real pressure, it was just like other people in the club put him off, and he didn't want to do it anymore after a year, because he felt it like so much is expected of me already, and I'm still learning, Chunji. And
Yeah. But that's the thing about pressure, isn't it? It doesn't have to be real. It can just be how you perceive it.
Exactly. So true. Yeah.
So you were talking about some kind of things that you use to help distract you from what's going on around. What, we don't want to give tips to your competition, but like, what kind of things do you find you want to block out? Like, do you have a routine as well as the motivational speech or something that helps you to block out what's going on?
Sorry, I didn't hear the part before the motivational speeches.
So do you have something that helps you to, as well as your motivational music or speech, that helps you block out distractions? What kind of things do you do?
Like the last few years, when I found out more about like breathing techniques and like just calming your heart and everything, I've been trying that, to just go somewhere to just like recollect my thoughts, try not to think about what I can't control at that moment. And also like a specific warm-up. I think like it has been like a routine that I've had for years now. So if I don't do it, and if it doesn't feel good in the warm-up, like in my mind it's already, oh, I'm not feeling my best today, blah blah blah. So that I hope that answers it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that most people will say that if they don't have a consistent routine, it's very hard to know if you feel right.
Exactly.
You can't give yourself that reassurance that no, today feels good. Today feels like the other days that were good.
For sure. Yeah, your sidekick doesn't feel right, or you keep missing something, and yeah.
I think that's one of the challenges as well. If you change coach, or if you're preparing with a new coach or a different training partner, that can be a big challenge. For
sure, yes.
Now, the fact that you're actually studying sports psychology, are there any things that you've learned that you now put into your game? Maybe some like things that you focus on, not focus on, or tips, tools, whatever. Is there anything that you've changed?
Well, when so I just started in October, and we had and since then I just did 2 competitions. So I didn't, like the WAKO World Championships was just like 2 weeks in my semester, so I didn't actually have so much to learn from. But yes, I think the first semester was very theoretical, not so much practical. Like the next semesters will be like that. I think just learning a lot about like learning new skills, and like the external or internal control, and then just rethinking how I learned it when I was like focused on like put your knee up for yopchagi, and then or try to like kick through it, just thinking about how you would teach someone. I think it just gave me a lot to think about if I was starting again. But now, like for my competition at the moment, it wasn't so much I don't know,
so practical yet.
Yeah. Like there was a lot of like
theory
about like mental toughness, or the choking under pressure. That was a interesting one, and just like different forms of it. And I think it just gave me a lot to think about, but I don't think it reached a point yet where I can use this in my competition yet. So
I think choking is something that a lot of people experience, actually defeating themselves rather than being defeated by an opponent. Is there anything that you can kind of like share about choking, and maybe why it happens, how it happens, and some ways you can avoid it maybe?
So there, if I recall correctly, more types of it. So one is like when you like paralysis by analysis, when you get too caught up in your like thinking about what you're going to do, and you just block that fluent movements that would usually be executed, and then you just block your own techniques, you know.
You stop yourself from just flowing naturally, that
From
implicit
flowing,
knowledge that you have. Yeah,
exactly. And then the other one, when your own worries or like doubting in yourself distract you so much that you can't focus on what you're supposed to be focusing on, and like your attentional space is just you don't have space for things that matter anymore because you're too worried and doubting yourself. And another one which I didn't know about before was a self-image model. I don't know if you heard of it. Being so worried about your athletic identity, so when you're performing poor, that you choke even more because you want to present to the world like in a certain way, like you want people to perceive you like this and this athlete, and then if this doesn't work, you choke even more, and it just affects your performance even more.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, it's
really interesting.
It is a real challenge when you're talking about that, like the right amount of focus and on the right things. I mean, it's so easy, particularly if it's your first championship and you walk out into the arena and it's your first championship, and there's so many people that you've watched on YouTube, and it's a new experience for you.
And it looks so easy.
To the right things. Yeah.
It looks like you just go in there and fight, and that's it.
But so many things go through your head, and then when you step onto the mat and you're there with your opponent, people often come out after their first match and they tell you, "I didn't even hear you," you know, as the coach. I didn't notice the scoreboard. I didn't see this, and you know, it's like, were they even there at all?
Yeah, like their attention is like all over the place. Like, oh, they're shouting my name. There's a judge. There's a yeah.
And then with an experienced competitor who's flowing well, they can almost like have a conversation with you. You know, they're relaxed enough. They can just pay attention to the right things and not too much, and they can stay focused and in the action, and it lets them relax enough to let things be automatic.
Yeah, and I think that only comes with experience. What do you think? Like, you can't train someone who's never fought before to be like that, you know?
Yeah,
I don't know.
You need to definitely experience it and find that trust in yourself, knowing that you can trust yourself in that moment and not panic. And okay, it's not the end of the world if this doesn't go so well. You know, you need to have that trust in yourself, and I think that only really comes, as you said, from the experience. I think it's very difficult for somebody to be able to put themselves there if they haven't experienced it fully themselves yet. So yeah, I think the experience of that is very, very important. I think as well with overthinking, it comes a lot back to your mind not being in the present moment. So like the whole idea of like meditation and things like that. So do you think that even if somebody was competing in their first tournament, that using skills like this would at least help them some bit? I know we just said that like experience will get you there to trust yourself and find your flow a little better. But do you think things like meditation and being more present with your thoughts will kind of at least help a little bit?
I'm sure it will. It's getting very popular now, I think. Like not even just in sport, but I think being able to like bring your attention and focus and everything back to the moment, like, can only be a good thing in sparring. Especially, for example, if you get a head kick or something, and you can be like, oh, you know, I lost now. Or just to just like be able to get it out. Okay, that happened, but like I'm still fighting. Like there's still, I don't know, 1 minute left. What can I do? And just come back to the neutral position and start, you know.
In your gym, whether like back home in Maribor or when you get to visit Master Tomaz, you know, do you do exercises or do you have scenarios where you put yourself in that position? You know, like, oh, you've just been hit in the head and you have 30 seconds to make up 3 points, or you know, the pressure changes. You have 2 warnings and you're, you know, on the edge of the ring. Do you play with these things?
Yeah, by we haven't done this much of sparring and so in Germany, but I know for sure here in Slovenia, before the competition, I think there's almost always a part of the preparation period when we, like you said, like partner A is leading for 2 points, and then they always keep reminding us, like, even if you're like leading, don't just step away and, you know, move around, just play or continue playing your own game. And then it would be like 30 seconds and 2 points difference, and then 20, or then 10 seconds and 1 point difference, and there, you know, you can feel the intensity going up. And I think it's really like a good training experience too.
I think even from the sounds of that and from our experience of it, that helps you not be overwhelmed by the pressure of the situation when you go to the real thing. You felt it, something like it before. For
sure. Yeah, it's not a new feeling, like when you're in the ring, like, what do I do now? You know that there's still a way to do it because you've done it before. Then again, experience.
I think that's interesting as well, because that's probably the situation where people less often will choke when they're actually in the sparring match and maybe they've got a head kick and they have to do something about it. I think it might be a little bit more frequent for people like before their first fight, so that when they step on the mats for the first time, that they might feel very uneasy and things. So there is probably two forms of that choking and being able to deal with that pressure as well. I think not just like combined together, because I think that for some people, I know that like that first match can be a make or break one. You know, if they get a good run, okay, then they can settle down and come into their own a little bit. But if not, it's over in the first match if you don't have time to pull it back and get into your own stride, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's it seems like choking will only happen when bad things happen, but I think it can happen as well where, you know, a person finds himself in a winning position and they're not familiar with the pressure of closing out a match and continuing to the finish. You know, because maybe it's the quarterfinal, and if I just do this next 20 seconds, then I'm in the semi-final, I get my medal. And because they've already started to think ahead to what the outcome will be, is their brain is cluttered with things that don't belong in that match in that moment.
For sure. You know? And then even if the opponent, for example, like you said, last 20 seconds, if they change how they fight and get really like start attacking, and you don't know how to handle it, you get a warning, you get this and this, and you can lose it just because you relaxed for a bit.
Yeah, it can be over quickly. It's interesting what you said on that point as well, Adrian, the whole idea of you thinking about the future, because I think that's the whole idea of what overthinking is, really, isn't it? Like you're in this particular moment, but you're thinking about something else, and that's what overthinking is like. So it makes a lot of sense, really.
That's right.
Just an inappropriate focus. You're not thinking about, you know, what is here in front of you in the match. You're thinking about things that you can't control.
But I think once that happens, you're not in your flow state anymore. Like you're already out of it.
Yeah, very interesting for sure. I think I've spoken to a lot of people in the last few weeks about the mental game, and it's very interesting that not many people actually actively train it. They don't actually visualize and prepare mentally, but everybody agrees that it's one of the most important things. So it's kind of quite funny that way. Is that kind of what you find based on what you've been studying is the way with other sports, or do you think that they take it a little bit more in terms of it needs to be prepared and trained and executed?
I think it also depends on the sport. Like a lot of examples that we had at our program were from golf and like free shots at basketball. And with that, I believe that people use more visualization and so on. But and I can see like it's really useful and everything in our sport as well. Like visualization, I think a lot of people have tried it or heard of it, but never really did it. So I don't know. Maybe also people in sports who actively work with sports psychologists, that they use it more because they're told to, because they're working with them. But for us, I don't know, how is it in Ireland, but with sports psychologists in your team?
Yeah, it's not systematic.
Mhm.
You know, it's not systematic. I mean, some clubs and some coaches have done some work with. So we, you know, on my side of the country, we had Jerry Hussey in with us for a few sessions. He would have worked with the Irish boxers at one point in time. So we did a few sessions to kind of help to tailor some exercises for a Taekwondo application. But I mean, the biggest thing that we try to do I can't speak for everyone, but from my point of view, Richie's point of view, is to incorporate it into our regular training. So we don't want it to be something that happens separate from the Taekwondo. We want it to be something that happens completely, you know, meshed into the Taekwondo.
For sure. Like if you can visualize yourself on the beach breathing slowly or something, is completely different if you visualize yourself like in the fight, like scoring deaths, or I don't know. I think that's why it's so much more important, like you said, because it's within our sport. So that's what I'm also trying to incorporate, everything that we learn. Like how would that go in Taekwondo, you know, because it's so much different if you're and also all the research studies done on it, it's usually sport specific, and it's hard to just
translate it.
So
I think psychology researchers like to pick sports like the free throw in basketball or the golf swing, because it's a single isolated event that you can very easily test in laboratory conditions almost and see what the impact of things is. But Taekwondo is so open. You know, the sparring game is so dynamic. It's very difficult to give, you know, measurable and repeatable results. Because you can't recreate the environment. It's there one time only and then it's gone. So I think really an awful lot of what we have to work from is almost like anecdotal evidence. What worked for you at that time?
And even if you research something, it's always just the person you're researching and his opponent. Like it's always, because not only the opponent moves all the time, the opponent is not the same all the time, and then not like you can't isolate like one kick in the fight and study it, because it will be different in 10 seconds when the opponent will move or with a different opponent. And it's really hard to just imagine like doing a study on this.
I think that I think where it comes in a lot is maybe in the lead up to the preparation, like we were kind of talking about earlier, is in preparing yourself to cope with these things. So like having almost like a backup, that if things don't work out, that you have these tools and these things to kind of use to get you out of that. We say that whole, like the things like the overthinking and the overwhelm and the emotions that you don't want really as such, like, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also the coach and his reactions play a really big role in that. If something happens that like throws you off your game, and like if your coach goes crazy, like for some people it works better, they wake up, but for me, for example, I would spiral down even more, like you know.
Do you find with Thomas or Alice that, you know, they coach you differently to how they coach, you know, somebody else? Like
I think they do.
An edge or something.
For sure. Yeah.
So is this a conversation that happens between you and them, or they just have been with you long enough that they understand?
I think it's that they know that if they will like scream at me in the middle, I would be like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I think they how can I say that? Just like when they stay not calm, like of course you can't be calm all the time, but just to be rational, you know. It's not like don't do this, but tell me what to do, not what not to do. That's a, you know what I mean?
It's like that example of the pink elephant. If you say don't think of a pink elephant, it's the first thing that you see in your brain.
Exactly.
For sure. And when you talk about control, because I know you mentioned it a few times already, some people seem to have different ideas of what they can control. I'm interested to maybe what you see as things you are in fully control of when you step in the ring.
Well, for sure, like I can't control what my opponent will do, obviously. But I think
Mhm.
that we are in full control of everything we do, like how we move, if we get hit, what we do afterwards. Like basically everything that contains your own moves and your attacks or defense or focus, being prepared to counter or this.
Yeah. From what I've been reading and seeing from different people talking about this, is the common trend seem to be you can control your work ethic, so how hard you decide to work and try.
For sure.
And also, as you said, your mindset, so how you react to things and things like that. Do you think there's anything missing from that you also have control of, besides work ethic and your mindset? Do you think they're the only two things, or would you say there's something missing maybe?
I think it is, because you're asking me. I can't think of it, but I'm sure there is something.
Yeah, it is.
I'm going to put I was going to say, I'm going to put a cheeky question in there.
Okay.
So have you ever looked at psychology not just as a self-defense and self-building tool, but something that you can do to disrupt your opponent or get an advantage over your opponent?
Just the way you step into the ring, and like the way you, just your whole like body posture and body language, I think shows if you're like all,
Yeah.
So I think that, and also like if you get like a head kick, that you don't really react, so your opponent doesn't see, like that your opponent can't see what's happening inside of you, that if you're like stressed, you can't show it, or if you're afraid of him or her, you just don't show it, like you have this. I think that's also what you can control. Yeah.
I have to tell you, I asked it because, where this first came to my mind was from training with Master Barada, but also with Master Tomaz. And so I wondered how much kind of came through then to you, Ursa, where, particularly Master Tomaz always had a thing, no matter how hard you hit him, you keep smiling.
Yeah,
you have to say it the Dutch way, so it's smiling. But so no matter what, it's amazing, but it takes it out of you as a competitor when you're hitting the other person and you hit them hard and they just smile at you. It's like nothing happened. And then also, watching videos from when Tomaz was sparring in, late 90s, I suppose, and there could be a draw, for example.
Yeah.
But when there's a draw and you see the other person and their head is down and the shoulders drop, and he's just like, okay, here we go again. And it's like, that's devastating, because when you're there after 2 rounds and your legs are shaking and there's nothing left in your arms and you've given everything.
Yeah. And
the draw happens and you look over and the other person is bright-eyed and bouncing and ready. Yeah. It's if you don't have that preparation, it's crushing. So those are just like some small examples, I think, that from your coach and his coach that stuck with me.
That's just to jump in on that one as well. It's kind of like the whole idea of the art of war with Sun Tzu, isn't it? Like when the whole idea of when you feel tired, you act like you're not, and vice versa, just not to give your enemy any advantages.
Yeah. And I think that's also like in the end, like you said, if it was a fight with a draw, and they could be, their physical like preparation could have been the same, they could be the same, but like if one has the, like here, where's the mental part comes in, like in my opinion, like who is mentally tougher in that fight at that moment, he will show it, and he will, I think, push him for the last step he needs.
Go ahead, Richie.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, what happens then, I think, is, if you have it in your mentality to think of your posture, to think about, your expression, and to stand tall and to bounce and to convey that, you don't feel as tired. You feel like you have better energy, I think. Yeah. And it almost feels like you can feel it from your opponent. Yeah.
It's, I think that was covered a lot in my bachelor program, so biopsychology, like the connection between the brain and the body you know, like being like you said, if you just have to convince your mind to it, you actually, and start, you know, walking tall and like being, I'm still ready to fight. Like you said, it's not so hard anymore. But if you look from the perspective from the other one, who is like bowing down and with his head down, he will have a hard time like recovering and coming back into the I'm fine again position, because he already, his mind is quit already.
Yeah, and I know it's a little bit different that like maybe at the start of the fight, but I feel like that's why Conor McGregor does, you know, that Billy strut that he does, where he like swings the arms and the shoulders as he comes into the ring. I actually feel like that's more than, obviously it's marketing and entertainment, but I feel like that's something that he uses as well for him inside, to feel that confidence and feel that energy. And
or Raymond Daniels, like before his fights in kickboxing. He knows everyone is watching, and I think it just like he fills up with energy of the routine, and then of course the transferring it to his body and body, and
definitely, and of course two of those guys are quite charismatic, and they're kind of out there, and they have personalities. Do you think that for everybody it's possible to maybe to build this mental toughness and to build into your routine ways of getting this toughness as well?
I think it is. You just need, I think if you're just beginning, the right mentor and coach for sure, and then if the people around you have the same mentality, I think it's easy to like being drawn into it and build up on mental toughness, and of course like through your own experience and losing and then winning against the same person the next competitions, and just like proving to yourself slowly, you know, that you're becoming better.
Definitely, you can take a lot from that, as you said, like the previous action, you can take a lot from in your future performances. And I think that's where a lot of confidence comes from, for sure. Just taking it from, okay, I've pushed myself and I've challenged myself here for a long time, so that action actually gives you the confidence then, and that mental toughness to say, okay, I can do this, you know, even when the going gets tough.
For sure.
On that note, do you think people have to suffer some setbacks or some defeats to enable them to develop, you know, some more mental toughness? So is adversity needed? Does there have to be a challenge?
I think for sure.
Yeah.
For example, if someone was always fighting against opponents much like less experience and not on the same level, like he would eventually get like mental toughness and like feel good about himself or herself. But I think once he starts or she starts to fight against like really tough opponents and everything, that this is needed for him or her to grow more, you know, because you can just come this far if you fight on this level, and then if you get beaten, you see you have to like upgrade, you have to do more, train more, and then you get better, like in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, they have that phrase in like software engineering, fail forward fast, you know, that it's kind of the quickest way to get to a good solution is to fail fast. You know, put yourself under a little bit of pressure, find several ways that don't work to eventually find the good solution. And I think if you're resilient enough, you know, that can be a very effective way of improving your mental training. But we're also vulnerable. You know, we can be really set back by the things that get in our way, the things that challenge, like you said, the self-image.
Yeah, especially if it's for a longer period of time that you're being beaten or something, and you didn't have your like a little bit of success in between, like you can also start doubting yourself before, even though you may be like still becoming better and everything. But I think here and there you need the approval or like the success. So okay, I'm on the right way.
Yeah, so
and obviously. Yeah, so like that goes back to then your belief system and things like that. I wonder, have you done anything on that, on the beliefs and how you can maybe like come up with your belief system and maybe change certain beliefs that you may have. So like, for example, if you had maybe a coach who told you that like failure is bad and you must win, like how you like go about changing those beliefs to come up with a better system for you to kind of build on as such, and for you to stay the course while challenge yourself consistently to maybe get to that step you want to be in. So I'm just kind of interested to see if you ever did anything on the whole belief system and where these thoughts originate from.
If Tomaz was trying to,
even just in university or whatever, the whole idea of like your beliefs of the things that you think is correct, whether because like beliefs are powerful, whether they're
that's
good
the thing,
beliefs or bad beliefs, you know.
That's the thing. I think for sure they can change, but it takes a lot of work, and probably it is easier if there's a big change in your life. Like, for example, you switch clubs, you move, you get a new sparring partner or training partner, and then or you have a really devastating fight or something, and you start, looking into yourself and to work on it by yourself. But I think that's the hard way, because if you're on your own, you never,
Yeah, definitely. I think like
a question that we can ask, because you've won multiple championships and a challenge that we see right across Taekwondo and other sports as well. What motivates you to go back to try to achieve more, when for so many people it's about a career trying to achieve something? When you've achieved, quite a few things already, what's the motivation to go back and achieve more time after time?
I think off the top of my head, it's just because I enjoy it so much. Like, I can't imagine like my daily life without going to training, and then the competition and like preparation, that's just like a part of it. And I enjoy it. Like, of course, it also motivates you to like prove yourself again. And then I remember when I first became a European champion, and then the next year I defended the title in the juniors. And I remember my coach told me, like, it's one thing to win it for the first time and once, but then if you do it again, that means so much more. And I think it's just on one side the enjoyment of it, and on the second side just to keep doing it and like proving to myself that I can do it, I think.
And I think you've learned to enjoy the process.
Yeah, for sure. And especially when you look back to your fights from a few years ago, and you're like, oh, how did I win anything with that? and also seeing yourself improve, I think that's also a cool part of, yeah,
it's kind of like what you just said, Adrian, about the small wins and those little things keeping you turning up all the time.
Definitely. I think that's the addictive part, isn't it? Like, if you can learn to enjoy setting all those goals, like, and every time you just set the goal a little bit further, and as long as you keep achieving those goals, it's like setting a streak target for yourself, that if I can just do this one thing more, and then you look back and you realize, I've done so many things already.
Exactly.
I don't have to stop. I can keep achieving. I can keep getting better.
Yeah, even if you win the next championships, like, there won't be the line where you're like, okay, now I've proven everything. Okay, later when you're older, but like, try to finish your career. But for now, I think that's what motivates you to go on.
Yeah, so like the question that I'm thinking of now is, if you were to look back at maybe somebody who's younger in their school, or maybe a younger you or something, is there anything that you've learned from all this time that you would say maybe this is something that you should do to really help the mental side of your game?
I think a lot of confidence that you can get for the competition is at training. I actually think that most of it, and the good feeling, it happens all at training, because you start to, trust in your sidekick because it worked there and it felt good there, and you do it all the time. And then just the repetition and the good feeling that you get at training, and then just transfer it to the competition and just be like, you're here to do what you've been doing every day now. Just, enjoy it. It's, and think less of it as like being afraid to lose. I think that's the worst thing that can happen. Like don't be so afraid to lose that you forget to win or something like that. I read this somewhere. I think thinking about it can put so much pressure on yourself if you're like, everything can happen, I just can't lose this one. I think that can ruin your whole
and I think that's important you mentioned about the self-image and things, because obviously with younger teenagers and people who may be on their first championships, they're kind of more easily led, and it can be easy for them to like, see different people's opinions matter and things. Obviously when you're older, you kind of care less about what people think about you and things. So like how would you approach that for somebody who might be like a teenager or
you mean like spectators and like your friends?
Your friends, and maybe like expectations and dealing with the opinions of other people as such.
I think they so if I understood it correctly, if the juniors who are more too worried about their self-image to
exactly
it's so
a tricky one, because
you,
I do think
you can
teenagers
always give advice, you can always say it doesn't matter, and just think about your fighting but to really get to them, to but also like it's not an answer to that, but regarding self-image, like when people transfer from juniors to seniors, I know a lot of people who have fought at their best in their first senior match, and just because of their mindset of I'm a senior, I'm new here, nobody knows me, nobody expects anything from me, I have nothing to lose, and then they fight the fight of their lives, I think
true.
that's
I recently
go ahead.
The amount of juniors who turn seniors become very successful in their very first year, and then they're not seen for they go and they vanish, because I think then everything has changed. They had that moment, like Ursa was saying, where the first time there's no big expectations. They've taken all the pressure off themselves because, hey, I'm senior now. It's the big.
I have nothing to lose.
Girl. Nothing to lose. I'll just have fun. Let's see how it goes. And then now that they've achieved something, it's like they put all of these bricks on their back again, and they make it hard for themselves.
And it's the same with juniors, like with really young juniors achieving the titles at 14 or 15, and then everything less than gold medal is a failure, after.
Start too high.
Tricky.
The trick is to lose for a long time first.
And then
and then never stop winning.
Because you also, like, obviously you need to lose. Like, it's so important to lose.
But, definitely. Because a lot of time, especially just when you're competing in general, like when you win and you get the gold medal, you never really watch what you did wrong or how to improve. Exactly. But when you lose, even if it was the final, you're interested in, okay, what went wrong, what didn't go so well. But when you win, you nearly don't even watch the video to see what was going on and what the problems were, So
exactly. You don't see the mistakes you made in a fight where you won.
Like, and you could have won like an extra point, and it was so close, and obviously there was still some things that could be fixed, but because you got your hand raised at the end, everything is perfect and you don't need to worry.
For sure.
Master we did a conversation once, and he was talking about an exercise that he challenged some of his students with, which was to go into a competition where the level of the competitors wasn't so high, and to lose. And it was a tough one for the ego, of course, for the competitors. But his challenge to them was, okay, you're to pick something that isn't going so well at the moment, and this has to be your game plan when you go into this tournament. And if it means that you lose, then you lose. If you're winning, you need to pick something harder, until you start losing. So it's almost like, the slow bicycle race. It's the one who finishes first is the loser. But I thought I've never done it, but as a thought exercise, it's interesting. Well, if we can forget about the consequences, what will we try?
Yeah, that's the thing about being afraid to lose. Also, because you're so afraid of it, you're not risking to do anything you wouldn't normally, or switch your lead leg or something like that, because it's working until now and you just have to keep it going. So that's a good exercise, actually.
Yeah. So
kind of brings up the whole idea of the threat state and challenge state, I think, as well, isn't it? Whether, like we talked about this earlier, you're either in a challenge mode or you're in a threat mode, where everything is like pressure and expectation, or you're coming from the mindset of everything is fine, it's going to work out, nobody's going to die, I'm just here to take part in my sport, and let's see what happens. I think that just that mindset of one versus the other is so important, and it makes a huge difference.
Oh, for sure.
So is there a safe place that you can go to compete and try new things, or for you, because of your experiences and so on, is like, do you feel an expectation yourself to be successful and to win at every tournament that you go to?
I do, and I try to. I can't really like put a finger on it what exactly is happening in my mind at that time, but I think I try to not get it over me so much that I stop enjoying it. Like I still, kind of bringing myself to trust in it and just continue working. I think for example, if I moved to Germany and was just able to train once a week, I wouldn't want to compete like on high level again, because I would just know that I don't feel as I should. Like my ideal performance state wouldn't be achieved, and it wouldn't make sense for me to go out and still try to compete just because.
Yeah. It's hard to compete just for fun when what you should be capable of.
Exactly. So that's
This is, I think, the curse for competitors, that once you get to a particular level, you can't just compete for fun. You can only enjoy it if the preparation is correct.
Exactly, for sure. When we were talking about choking before, I actually remembered I had I'm not sure if this is choking, but like on last year's World Championships, I was fighting against a girl who has beaten me 2 times before in semifinals, and I was really like feeling good in the preparations and everything, and I was so focused and like fighting against her in the semifinals, and then when I won, after that it's like I lost my focus, I lost my edge. Like in the finals, I don't even remember what I was doing. I lost. I didn't want to watch the fight again for like 1 month, because it's like I wasn't there. I was in the fight and I didn't know what I was doing. And I've beaten her before. That's the thing. It's just like I made the mistake, like even after all the experience and everything, to feel like this was my finals. And then after that, my whole body and everything just went. The focus wasn't there. I didn't know what I was doing. Which is sad, because it had to happen in the finals of the World Championships.
Of course, yeah.
But I think about it, and it's
I think I in Germany as well. I had that experience with coaching Louise McCann, and she had that exact experience you're describing, but between the first round and the second round.
Okay.
So she came back super relaxed. Everything was going so well. She was 4-0 ahead. She had at least 3 points on every card against Poland in the semi-finals of 68.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything's good. And in the break, it was almost like she was. How did Lindsay get on? And she wasn't. Once the referee had like called head show, it was like the brain went to some other place, because. It's the first time it's happened like that for her. But it's amazing how, just a little trigger, something can happen.
You get relaxed for 1 second.
To another place.
Yeah. For 1 second, you think, okay, I did it. And then your whole body is, okay, I'm done.
It's almost like waking up from a very realistic dream. you know, you have that, you're convinced it's true and it happens, but it's not there yet. Yeah,
exactly. It's not there yet. You haven't won it yet. It's not finished.
Yeah, it's tough. It just shows you, even though our matches are very short, just 2 by 2 minutes, and maybe in the day you have 4 or 5 matches, like the work that it takes to be able to maintain your concentration and to perform at your best level for all of those matches, it can be underestimated.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so we got a lot of good bits there. Definitely, it was a good chat.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, just
thank you
thanks
for
very
having
much.
me. Really, really. I was so happy to hear when you said that you want to come up with a book. I'll be the first to buy it.
Yeah, as I said, like I just think that everybody agrees it's such an important aspect, but not everybody knows how to go about training it and putting it into place. You know, people almost take it for granted. Like
it's like you have it or you don't, right?
Exactly, yeah, and it's almost like that people feel that you have to just be around for a long time before you can just feel like you're mentally prepared. But I don't agree with that. That's the correct way. I think that, you know, there's tools and a process there that people can follow to have the mental preparation and have peak mental performance. You know,
for sure.
Definitely an interesting topic.
Yeah. For example, in kickboxing, I was always like impressed about the team from UK. Like I think also like the little ones, like the cadets from 12 to 14 years, like the way they walk onto the tatami and like the way they fight is like, what did they teach them? Like, so I'm sure they must have been working on like the aspects of that.
Yeah.
But it's for sure.
Yeah,
I think another thing as well, like Ursa was saying earlier, where you try to read the research or even the books that you can pick up, and most of them are talking about, you know, tennis players and golfers and, you know, or endurance athletes, you know, very long distance, like ultra marathons or triathlons, Ironman triathlons and so on. And, you know, the principles might be the same, but applying that to what we do in Taekwondo is not always obvious. It's the same in like the conversation we had on skill acquisition. It's like, it's all well and good knowing how this works in soccer. But, you know, trying to figure out how that works for Taekwondo is another story.
That's why it's important that like you're doing and what I'm trying to study, like to have experience in that and just try to somehow like apply it to this and try to get some new things out of it. I'm sure for sure definitely. When I doing my I know I'll be working on some projects at the university, and also for my master thesis next year I will for sure do something and the research something connected to martial arts, so I will be in touch with you guys.
That'll be really
exciting.
Good.
Yeah,
really good.
For sure. Yeah, there are not many of us working on that, so that's good to know.
Yeah. Definitely. So yeah, thanks again. It was really good chat. I enjoyed it. It was really cool to catch up and have a talk about something that we don't really hear about so often, especially. So yeah, fantastic.
Definitely.
I agree. I really enjoyed it. Didn't feel like I'm in quarantine for an hour now.
Yeah. It makes it
we
easier.
get a small break.
So I really enjoyed it. Thank you again.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So look after yourself, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
You too. Stay safe.
Very good.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.